Hi guys, my name's Sibshuder, I'm the man on the Silver Mountain, and welcome back. Now today I wanted to talk about something a tad more positive than some of the stuff I've covered over the last couple of weeks. And this is something that's to do with relationships, but also to do with some of the other stuff that I do on the channel, most prominently gaming. And the stuff that I want to talk about, it was covered in a little 3-minute video that was put out by Unilad a few days ago. And I wanted to expand on it because I actually went and took a look at some of the information behind it, and considering that relationships and things like that are an area that I often touch on with people, and considering that this applies to the relationship that I have at the moment with Hannah, it's something that I wanted to expand upon because I feel like in a lot of instances this is something that either works for people or just doesn't get touched on at all. And it's one of these things where the content of the opinion from this relationship therapist that was in this video, plus the Queensland University of Technology study that was done, all point to gaming and couples that play together staying together. And it's maybe a bit of a no-brainer. You know, you've got if you've got a shared interest that in some way involves you doing an activity together, then there's a better chance that that shared time is going to generate a greater level of familiarity and consistency within a relationship. It might also add variety to it on top of that, and so as a result, yeah, it should be no surprise that gaming as a hobby would also add to that. But there's a little bit more than that due to the nature of the kind of games that people have to play together. Because, you know, you don't have your story-focused, kind of isolated, linear stories usually being co-op. And so if you're playing a co-op game, or if you're playing a multiplayer game that you can actually play together with someone else, then you're going to be looking at a game that requires communication. It's going to require kind of working together at times, working together in concert in both a physical, in terms of button presses, and a communicative and comprehensive kind of way. And so it should be no surprise that this is the case. And, you know, I wanted to expand on that a little bit, because from the areas that we see in gaming as broken down by things like Bartle's taxonomy, where you've got the different kinds of gamers and where people tend to kind of focus their time in games, it's one of these things that can work very, very well, but where the Queensland University of Technology study went, yes, there is a greater level of validation and support and communication between partners that will play games together, as with any other hobby, or to an extent. The level to which gaming goes beyond that is more that you can complement each other's fun and enjoyment, more so than if you're going on a walk together. Then it's a case of, well, you're both going on a walk, you're both going and doing something together, but then you can communicate. You don't have to, as long as you know where you're going. You know, there are lots of things that can limit that experience as just I went walking with this other person. Might not add to the experience so much as just kind of be an extra descriptor. You know, there's nothing else tangible to it that comes out the other end. Whilst when it comes to playing games, if you're a social player, then obviously you're focused on who you're playing with anyway. But if you're an explorer, then having an extra pair of eyes to find things is going to be more useful to you, and it's going to enhance your experience. Having the more achievement-focused mindset, well, you've got an extra pair of hands potentially to go and achieve those things that you want to, be it hitting a certain type of loot quality, or going and getting a number of achievements or unlocks, or whatever it is. If you've got that other person with you, potentially, depending on the game design, it will make that an easier experience, and therefore a more enjoyable experience for you, because you're achieving faster. And if you're a killer, then quite frankly, the the killer mindset probably just benefits more than anything else, because obviously if you've got another person with you to watch your back, to keep you alive, to kind of take care of things for you, the stereotypical pocket healer partner, then what it kind of comes down to is, yeah, your experience is going to be improved. You're going to get more kills. You are going to be able to impose on others through the game more efficiently and effectively, because you have got someone keeping you safe, healing you up, watching your back, and so on and so forth. And so in a world where at the moment finding time to be with someone else can be incredibly difficult, because we're living very fast-paced lives with an awful lot of stuff going on in them, it can be taxing. And especially in regards to long-distance relationships like the one that I have with Hannah at the moment, where we're just that little bit too far away so that it becomes inconvenient to see each other on a more regular basis. It comes down to these interactions can be the way in which new memories are developed, the way in which new experiences and variety are added to a relationship, and how you can better learn to communicate and support each other. If I see that Hannah is wanting to play a game, she's probably wanting to play a game with people. She tends to be much more social in her gaming style than I am, whilst I quite happily go and explore. And yeah, I enjoy exploring with her. I enjoy finding my way through games with her. But for instance, taking Conan Exiles, I'm more likely to sit there and want to develop and grow and build and understand the mechanics of a system so that I can build this awesome structure for us to then play around, whilst she's going to be far more inclined towards kind of setting things up to make them comfortable and effective and useful for people to actually use. So she's focused much more on the people aspect of the structure, whilst I'm more based on just developing the structure. And so between the two of us, we can come up with some really great stuff. But individually, I can help by supporting her with building things, and she can help support me by then taking care of furnishing them with the right stations, the right thralls and whatever else as we go on. It's a thing then, though, that allows us a greater appreciation of what we want from our spare time. And then furthermore, it allows that greater understanding of how each other will work in those situations. Gaming can be, especially a more stress and stretch based situation. You're taken out of your comfort zone. You are exposed to situations against other players or in game environments that are specifically put there to test you, to stretch you, to get you to learn new mechanics and then apply them. And so doing that with someone else, that's why you make lifelong friends with people in university, in school, in work, because you are in these stressful situations, and going through stressful situations builds familiarity, it builds understanding, it gives you a common enemy in many instances, and so it allows for that growth and that development of that relationship. And especially when you're already hopefully being honest and communicative and consistent with one another in terms of your relationship anyway, going and applying yourselves to these situations that otherwise you wouldn't be able to do in the modern world. You couldn't easily go out on some big adventure in some place you've never been, because most people in their normal week don't have the amount of time or the amount of money required to go and travel to somewhere that they've never been before, or go and do a thing that they've never done before. Sometimes, yeah, you'll find free classes, you'll find certain little like hidden restaurants and things like that maybe to go and try out and find and enjoy, but for the most part you're not going to have that. Once you know your area. Moving outside of that is kind of difficult for a lot of people, especially when they are holding down full-time jobs and all that kind of thing. So then looking at it like the conclusions drawn by the study and suggested by this relationship therapist that seemingly spoke to Unilad, yeah, I completely agree. The gaming is a way to develop and support relationships far more effectively than a lot of other things as well. Because also the thing is that when it comes to comfort levels, some people's comfort levels differ. You know, I have a much larger stretch zone than Hannah does, for instance. I don't tend to get as flustered by things. The might get to her more. And so when it comes to it, when we've got these situations that we are playing through together, it's a stressful and it's a testing kind of situation, but it's still completely safe. And so it's still a case of, whilst you're tested, whilst you're pushed to an extent, and you're there with someone else, building that experience, building that relationship as you go, at no point are either of you ever in actual danger. Going and eating at a restaurant, you might come away with food poisoning. Going travelling, you might end up with stuff stolen, or at the very worst, you might end up stranded somewhere that you're unfamiliar with, or whatever else. Taking up classes and things, or going and stretching outside of your normal week, if you've not got the time, it might leave you exhausted and might then have a negative effect on the rest of your life. You know, throwing your work-life balance out of whack and causing you to be under-focused on things that you otherwise would have at the core of what you're doing for a week. And, you know, moving on kind of sideways from that, the average person, again, just doesn't have the time to take up an awful lot of these extra things. When I was working a full-time job, it was basic, a 37.5 hour job, and yet most weeks I'd end up doing 50 hours, possibly more, depending on which job we're talking about. There were times that I would work basically every day for nearly a month. Even though at times I was maybe going in and working to cover someone, or I was having to go in and do extra work because of some of the stuff that I was doing. And so it was always a case of me being in work. I didn't have that time not to be. And, you know, the only way that I would continue to develop relationships and things like that was outside through gaming. Simply because the people that I was interacting with were available through the games. They were available to communicate, to grow, to develop. And it was a case of during the day, during the night, I might not have had that time otherwise. You know, I couldn't travel somewhere to go and see people. I didn't have it. I had enough time to get in a quick match of, I don't know, whatever game I was playing at the time. Do a quick mission in an MMO, do a quick match in some PvP game or in a wave-based shooter or something like that. Build a new structure in a survival game, but that would be maybe half an hour to an hour of doing something with a friend, when including travel time, getting in, spending time with friends face to face over drinks, and then coming away would be much more time that I just didn't have available to me, considering I would either have to be very on the ball with kind of getting up at stupid o'clock in the morning and running through a long day and then calling it quits and then looking to repeat the whole thing on minimal sleep, or it was a case of there were just too many other things up in the air and going on. And when it comes to getting into relationships, yeah, that can be incredibly difficult when you're also in that kind of situation. And this is why we see the uptick in things like online gaming, or people meeting their significant others through gaming and through other things like that. And so looking at what was said, I completely agree with it. I would love to see more studies done on this kind of thing, to be honest, because gaming is becoming more and more inclusive and more open in various ways. Whether you agree with one person's version of that or another. It is becoming a larger and larger and larger industry, and is becoming far more accepted as such, even if people are still scapegoating it as a cause of violence, even though there's nothing to support that. And so, looking at it, it's going to be this large cornerstone of kind of media and culture going forward still, and that means people are going to be involved in it. And those people that are going to be involved in it can potentially be millions of people from all over the world, and so it gives so much more in the way of connectivity and the possibility for meeting people and developing and growing into relationships that you otherwise might not have had. And so especially when it then comes to the romantic, yes, it puts you into those kind of testing situations that allow for growth and development and understanding and communication between the two of you, but also it allows for the kind of solidification of yourselves as a front against the world, which is something that I feel is not talked about enough in regards to relationships. Because when it comes to the divorce rate, for instance, there are many issues that arise as a result of people not communicating and banding together as a team to operate as two individuals working together on life, essentially, rather than they wanting to claw at their own individuality whilst going for this ridiculous ideal. And so, having a game where you can prove to each other and to yourselves as a unit that faced with obstacles, you can overcome them with the right understanding of each other and the right kind of idea of where to go and how to operate, on each other's behalf. But anyway, guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts. How many of you guys play with your significant others? As you guys have seen me play with Hannah on the channel, there are a few things that we're planning on doing in the future in regards to stuff that we want to throw up on here, and possibly look at streaming as well in the future once I get the live streaming stuff all sorted out, which is still a bit of a long-term project. But how many of you have met your partners through gaming? How many of you have enjoyed the fact that you can spend time playing games with your partner and it's not as invasive on the other areas of the rest of your life as potentially taking up other hobbies that might cost more or require more of your time and energy? I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this, because obviously we are now in kind of raising generations from kind of maybe people that were born maybe about my age or just before, all the way through until kids that are being born right now, that this is becoming more and more commonplace and just more and more the way it is. And yet you've got the older generations who are still going, if you're sat in front of a computer, you're not spending time with your friends, you need to go out and meet them face to face, when actually you're doing a much more constructive and developmentally positive thing in playing a game, banding together with your bros and going out and laying waste to something, or grabbing your significant other and playing your way through, I don't know, A Way Out, for instance. A great example of a co-op game that has a big focus on cooperation and communication throughout the whole thing so far from what I've seen. So it's a case of, I'd love to hear your thoughts, guys, and I'm wholeheartedly agreeing with this and just wanted to expand on it and make you guys aware of it otherwise. I might leave a link to the video from Unilad, if I remember, down in the description. But otherwise, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the video later. Take care. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video or found it interesting, then please drop us a like, share this video, and subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the video later. Take care.